will call this meeting to order. It is the special election night meeting of the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections of September 29th, 2020. I am Mary Carol Cooney, chairperson, and I'm joined this evening by my colleagues, Mr. Mark Wingate, Mr. Aaron Johnson, and Dr. Kathleen Ruth. This teleconference meeting is authorized pursuant to section 50-14-1G of the Official Code of Georgia because of the public health state of emergency declared by Governor Kemp on March 14th, 2020, and renewed most recently on August 31st, which affects public meetings within state and local government buildings due to COVID-19, and because means have been afforded for the public to have simultaneous access to this teleconference. All right. I still do not see that Ms. Noureddin has joined us. Ms. Bodison, could you make a side call to her?
Yes, ma'am.
And let's see if we can get her in. Otherwise, and in the meantime, I'm going to ask my colleagues to look at, oh, no, there she's not, to look at our agenda.
Okay. Looking.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for September 29th, 2020.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Raise your hands, please, for Ms. Bodison. Thank you. All right. Ms. Bodison, do we have any members of the public wishing to be heard for item 2, communications and public response?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, that disposes of item number 2, which brings us to item number 3. And I assume, Ms. Bodison, that you have dialed Ms.
Excuse me, Mary Carol, but I believe someone had, I see 2 people have their hands up in the attendees area. I do apologize.
All right.
Okay, Cynthia Battles. I believe she's first.
All right, Ms. Battles.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Cindy Battles, and I am the program coordinator with Common Cause Georgia. I want you to know that we appreciate how hard you are all working to run both the special election and prepare for running the November election in the middle of a pandemic and along with so many other challenges. We still have concerns, however, that voters could face long lines and disenfranchisement if polling places aren't adequately stocked with sufficient supplies to convert to paper ballot voting if emergencies or issues with machines come up, or, as we saw this morning, if security guards don't show up. I'm calling to urge you to adopt recommendations that we, along with our partners at Brennan Center for Justice, sent to you and Director Barron a couple of weeks ago. We strongly urge you to supply polling places with enough emergency and provisional ballot supplies for 40% of the total number of registered voters assigned to a polling place. This should give polling places enough paper backup to cover all the more usual provisional balloting needs, such as voters finding themselves at the wrong precinct, as well as 2 to 3 hours of peak voting if machines or poll pads are not functioning properly. Taking this step is critical to minimizing lines and disenfranchisement on Election Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Battles. We are now joined by our colleague, Ms. Noureddin. Good to see you. Do we have one other person wishing to be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
And who is that?
Gowri I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that last name.
All right.
Ramachandran? I don't know.
If you recognize yourself, will you identify yourself?
Hi, thank you. This is This is Gowri Ramachandran. Thank you, and no worries on the pronunciation. It's a common, it's a common problem. No problem. Good evening. I'm Gowri Ramachandran. I'm counsel on the election security team at the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU. We are a public policy institute, and we work with election officials across the country to improve election administration. We appreciate many of the steps that you and Director Barron are taking to plan for a safe election. However, we do have serious concerns with whether counties are prepared for issues that may arise with voting machines and poll pads during early voting and on election day. As you know, yesterday, a federal judge—
Can you hear the sound?
As you know, yesterday, a federal judge who shares those concerns ordered that every county provide a paper poll book backup that's updated with check-ins at each polling site, as well as a sufficient supply of emergency paper ballots to ensure voting can continue if problems arise. So I urge you to adopt recommendations that we sent to you and Director Barron a few weeks ago, because an emergency paper ballot supply of just 10% of registered voters is not sufficient. In a high turnout election like the one we're all expecting, even if half of voters cast their ballots through absentee and early voting, election day precincts would likely run out of those ballots in less than 2 hours of peak voting. So we also call on you to supply polling places with enough emergency and provisional ballot supplies for 40% of the total number of registered voters assigned to each polling place. That would give places enough paper backup to cover the typical needs, like a voter being at the wrong precinct or just not appearing in the registration list, but would also cover up to 3 hours of peak voting if the machines or the poll pads are not functioning properly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does that take care of our public comment?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Then that disposes of item 2 of our agenda, and we move on to item 3, which is a discussion of the September 29th, 2020 special election for Congressional District Number 5. Mr. Barron, would you lead us through that? When you unmute.
Yes, good evening, board. We have, during early voting, where did my spreadsheet go? Just 1 second here. We had just over, oh, my spreadsheet. We have 450 absentee by mail ballots that we counted today. In addition to that, during early voting, I am pulling that back up because I think I closed it by accident. Excuse me. This morning, while I'm pulling this up, I will let you know that we had 2 polling places that had issues this morning. Ponce Library, there was an issue with the key card and the key. And so voters, we checked in 1 voter before outside. They went into backup procedures and they voted 1 voter outside the precinct before they got opened inside. And then at Park Tavern, the assigned security guard there didn't show up, and we had to vote 6 voters outside, but both of those polling places opened at 7 o'clock. Therefore, we were able to open on time at both of those locations. Other than that, the only other issue that was reported of significance was one of the polling places had a couple of the printers, the cables came loose on the back, but we got those resolved quickly, and we didn't have any other issues of significance that were reported today. As of 5 o'clock, Johnny reported to me that 2,650 voters had voted. I think that was just short of the 94 locations. I don't think they were able to get a hold of all 94 locations for that report. We had 8,756 people vote during the early voting period. And so total, there's an approximate total of 11,600 or 800 and about 855 that had voted as of 5 p.m., which included the 450 absentee by mail, election day, and early votes. We also have had 105 provisional ballots issued today. And with that, and there were also I know that in one precinct, I think it was SC, and Ralph can expand on this if we need to. We had to move because ElectionNet is unable to accommodate polling places for September, and then for November, all the polling place changes we made for November, we had to move all of those voters for those 91 precincts into their place to order the precinct cards and to get the head of household mailing ready, and then move them back before the election. And then starting tomorrow, we have to move all of those voters back for the November election. Some letters down to some congressional district 13 voters received the head of household mailing that indicated that they had a polling place today. And from what was reported to us, about 12 voters went there today. And other than that, the day was pretty quiet and smooth. I can take questions.
Who would like to ask a question? Dr. Ruth.
Yes, thanks so much for that report, Mr. Marin. You mentioned in the case with the issue around the printer that they were able to get that resolved quickly. Could you tell us like the time frame of that resolution?
It was sometime this morning, and I don't know if they were loose upon opening, but it was reported that there were we had 6 ballot marking devices assigned to that precinct. Four of them were operating fine. 2 of them ended up having loose cables on the back. And so once they got those plugged in, those printers worked fine as well.
Okay.
Dr. Ruth, if you don't mind my inserting a question, who plugged them in? Was there a technician who did that?
There was a technician there that was not the person that handled it. Somebody from our warehouse went out there and handled that.
Thank you.
But there was a technician on site?
Yes, there was a technician on site, but apparently the technician didn't know how to resolve that issue.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I would say was unable to resolve that issue.
All right.
I think we had somebody from our warehouse in the area. And so it was pretty quick that they were able to be deployed there.
Right. Additional questions? I am not hearing any, so let me ask. It appears that as of 5 o'clock, this is a preliminary number, there are 12,000 votes total cast in this election. Among how many polling places?
94 polling places.
9, okay.
And we have 7 early voting locations.
Okay. And of those 12,000 votes cast, 8,600 were early votes.
Yes.
Which means that there were relatively few that were cast today.
Correct.
Okay.
Although I think there's probably 20 precincts that were not listed in that 2,650 number.
Okay, so
For
that would be,
today.
yeah, still still a low number, I think, of votes cast on election day.
Yeah, Chairman Pitts and the county manager, they went to several sites today, and they reported that there would maybe one voter would roll up every couple of minutes, but it was really slow.
Okay, good enough. Mr. Wingate.
Just real quick, Rick, when do you think you'll have this wrapped up tonight?
We have runners that should be ready to go. They are supposed to leave for check-in centers within 10 minutes after the scanners shut down. So this is supposed to be a dry run for November. I mean, I hope to have everything wrapped up by the time the news reports at 11 o'clock tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? I guess if there are none, that is an indication, a confirmation of a good day. Thank you.
And I guess there were a couple questions today from board members and regarding the Senate District 39 race in November. And there is a partisan race on the ballot in Senate District 39 in November. And I told Aaron and Vernetta that I would talk to the Secretary of State's office today and get back to the board on this just for their information. In this race, there's a Democratic primary that's on the ballot. The state is sending out absentee by mail ballots, and for absentee by mail, every voter that receives an absentee by mail that's in Senate District 39 is getting a ballot with the Senate District race on it. And but if somebody votes in person and they live in Senate District 39, they're going to be given a choice of a ballot with the Senate District race or without the Senate District race. And I told the Secretary of State's office today that I thought it seemed unfair to me that to put the voters in Senate District 39 in the position of having to say they're going to vote in that Senate District race when, since it's a Democratic primary, it almost seems to announce into which selections they may make. So I'm not comfortable with it. Apparently it's, according to the law, that's the way we're supposed to operate this election, but there are going to be two separate ballots in Senate District 39, one without that partisan race and one with the partisan race. And the state said you don't have to declare a party. You just say, I want the Senate District race or I don't want the Senate District race. But
And I'm sure that
absentee by mail voters do not have to make that declaration or choice. They're just given the one ballot and it's with the race on it. And so it just doesn't seem that as though there's any consistency in the way they're executing this. But as Fulton County, we don't have a choice in the matter.
Did that come up in LNA?
No, that we were informed about this at the end of last week because we were trying to figure out how we were supposed to treat voters in that district. It's more of a how are we going to train the voters in that district?
No, it should be an LNA. Okay. All right.
The LNA issue, why LNA was stopped, it seems as though from what was reported to us is that in the U.S. Senate race where there's 20 candidates, if you vote all the way through, you get to the summary page and you go back, if you hit review and you go back, all the candidates are there, but if you leave that race again and go back, half the candidates disappear off the summary page. So that is why that was discovered during LNA one of the counties that were underway with LNA already.
Does that delay us?
Well, it didn't delay us because since we're having this election today, we weren't scheduled to begin. We weren't scheduled to begin logic and accuracy until Thursday anyway. So it didn't have any effect on Fulton County.
I got a
Johnson.
So I want to get back to Senate District 39 because I think it's going to be a little confusing for a lot because I hear a couple different things. And one, you're in the one sense they're saying it's a primary, but I thought that when the primary was already over, then it's kind of like the US Senate race where whoever's in it is able to run. Is that not the case?
I didn't ask them if there was a subsequent, apparently from my understanding is there aren't any Republicans running in Senate District 39. It's only Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
So the winner of that is
going to be the winner.
Going to go on and win that Senate race.
Which was already the case, but that person would have been on the November ballot. Because there were no Republicans running, to my understanding, there were no Republicans running in the primary in June. So the person that won in June, even though it was in a primary, essentially won, but they were on the ballot again.
Right.
So in this race, is there going to be a follow-up just only if there is a runoff?
Yes. That, I guess it would be, if there's a runoff, it would be December, that would be slated for December 1st.
Okay, I thought I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. And
but
then
I can get more clarification I didn't get clarification from the state on what happens after. What I asked them about today was why they were making voters choose between two different ballot styles for that race, because they aren't doing it during absentee by mail, which could end up being 40% of the vote, but they're making all the in-person voters make that declaration of with the Senate race or without. And it doesn't seem, I don't understand how that complies with the law when the absentee by mail also complies with the law. There doesn't seem to be any consistency there.
So as a department, will voters automatically be asked, or will they have to come in and say? Or are we going to put some type of notification? What are we going to do to alert voters? And how is the process going to work for voters to be able to get that ballot if they want it?
We're going to have two sample ballots by the check-ins, and then we will give them a script of how they're supposed to handle that, which is essentially going to say you have two choices. You can either vote the ballot with the Democratic Senate district race or without that race, and we'll probably leave the party out of it.
So now you'll have and I'm just thinking out loud, for anybody who votes during, well, just only absentee by mail, because this is going to be the same process for absentee in person, right? Not just election day.
Correct.
So if I get a ballot in the mail, I get to quote unquote vote in my primary.
Yes.
Well, actually, anybody who gets the ballot in Senate District 39, Democrat or Republican, is going to get it.
Absolutely.
And so then Democrat or Republican all the way through will be able to vote in a Democratic primary.
Yes.
And okay.
Ms. Newrigan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I will suggest and tell everyone who's watching to encourage their neighbors and friends who live in Senate District 39 to vote in that race. I received an email from Director Harvey who classified this race as a Democratic special primary, and seems to believe that asking the questions, do you want to vote in the race, is somehow different than saying, I am a Democrat, give me this Democratic ballot. But I submit today that it's no different. If you say yes, you might as well say you're a Democrat. And it's my understanding, and Ms. Ringer can clarify if she's on the line, that we cannot ask that question during a general election in Georgia. And so what I'm trying to see is how does the Secretary of State go through this board and through our department to say in Senate District 39 that we have to produce 2 ballots and provide 2 ballots because someone may not want to vote. It just doesn't seem logical, and it's impacting a Democratic district right now. It is anyway. So I guess I want to just encourage everyone to let anyone, our neighbors and friends, know that this question will be asked, unless, and like all Republicans, if they just wanted to vote absentee, will still be able to participate in this race if they vote by absentee by mail. And then Democrats who come in is going to be given an option. It just seems unnecessarily confusing, and it seems like it's going to impact certain groups more than others. So I wish that we had some ability as a board to say, no, let's just not do that. I thought we did have that power to not do that. So I was told that this Senate District 39 is a Democratic special primary, and that voters don't have to declare a party. They just have to say yes or no they want to vote in that Democratic special primary. So it just seems unnecessarily confusing for voters. It's going to impact certain voters more than others. And the only thing I can do is alert the community leaders that I know and ask them to do the same, to make sure that all voters, whether they're Republican, nonpartisan, or Democrat, have the opportunity to vote in that Senate district race and not be given a choice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? And I agree that it has got to be confusing to our voters, and I regret that.
I think one takeaway from this is, I'm not sure, it being indicative or anything, but roughly only 4% of this special election voted absentee. I'm a little surprised, very light.
Well, we didn't, no rollover ballots were mailed out for this election. So the only people that voted by mail were voters that specifically requested it.
Yeah, for this.
I think a lot of the rollover voters assumed they were going to get a rollover ballot for this election.
Yeah, I was about to say there was some mass confusion about that, because voters were told at the beginning of the year that once they applied for an absentee ballot, they were going to get it for the remainder of the year. But this particular race is not included in that.
Correct.
So,
right, that'll be the case for the runoff in December as well.
I think that might call for some action by this board. One action of which is to raise this with the state, that there is information that's going out that's misleading, and the other is to inform our voters. I don't know how my colleagues feel about that, but I find it disturbing.
Well, to me, it makes sense that to the point that we're discussing here, that for the December 1st runoff, that the state Rumbeck would continue on with that, handling those rollovers.
Yes.
I think, as Mr. Johnson was saying, it doesn't make any sense when somebody then has applied and is expecting an absentee ballot for whatever election they're eligible to vote for, that they're not getting it. Runoff, be it or not, runoff is still, clearly that's a very, very important election.
Yeah, and the code, there is a place in the code that gives exceptions to these types of special elections and says they're not included in that rollover mailing.
And this is one of them?
Yes.
Well,
That follows suit, yeah, guess so.
okay.
That needs to be looked at.
All right. Any further discussion of item number 3? And hearing none, let's move on to item number 4, which is discussion of our preparation for the general election.
We have, well, today we had a number, today we had a number of about between 35 and 40 poll managers. I think we signed up a couple in the last few days of people that we are assigning to the November election as poll managers. They shadowed experienced managers today, and then we'll go back to training between now and then. We have finished our allocation of BMDs, poll pads, and the poll pads, BMDs, and the scanners today with the help of the gentleman from Accenture that's been working with us with the internal working group. We were able to finish that up today. Nadine is finishing up that mobile schedule, although it seems like we can't get the mobile voting bus into the Fox Theater parking lot, so that we have to find a substitute location for that on the schedule. But I think Nadine's on here. She will probably say that I think she'll have that finished up tomorrow. There's also going to be a press conference on Thursday at 10 a.m. where the bus that has been delivered will be out in front of 141 Prior. And so if anyone from the board wants to attend that, they are welcome to do that. But we will be giving the media a tour on that bus. And it is a really, it exceeded my expectations. We're gonna be able to get 3 check-in stations on it. And there will be 10 voting stations on there in addition to the scanner. I've been getting a lot of inquiries from other counties. Some of the other counties have also, they ended up applying for the grant. We received that $6.3 million grant from Center for Tech and Civic Life, and I shared that information with a number of counties around the state, and some of them have already been awarded grant money as well. So that's good news. We will resume training this week, and we'll be training full force for the November election going forward. We have early voting laid out. We did get DSL installed at Chastain Park, which is, we had a, No Ink also over the last week has been out at our warehouse. We had about the same number, not almost as many poll pads assigned for this election, probably within 70 that we did for the June election. It took us about 1/3 of the time to get the bulk file onto that. And we expect over the next few weeks, with the help of No Ink, to get that down even more. They're testing a cash box today, and the No Ink staff visited all 94 locations today to check on the poll pads, and they are going to support us between now and through the November election. So we've developed a really good working relationship with No Ink over the last couple of weeks, and I think that's going to help us out getting the poll pads ready. What the cash box does is it enables us to, the bandwidth has been increased to 1 gigabyte out in the warehouse. When we pull that bulk file down, it comes in at somewhere between 300 and 400 megs of speed. It is pulled into the cache box at that speed. But once the cache box gets a hold of that file, we have these access points out there through these what are called Meraki devices, and it will then push that file out at a gig of speed through those Meraki devices onto the poll pads, which should speed this process up. We're also going to be, I've asked Derek to get time or to get reservations made at Dominion's warehouse so that we also have a backup and we can get some of our, if this doesn't work as fast as we need, we've got a place to do some of our bulk file upload ahead of the November election to make sure we're ready for supply pickup on the Sunday before the election. We are going to be allocating somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,180 BMDs for the election. Johnny's team has been assigning poll workers to precincts and getting them trained. We've also got 4 people that we've been using from Human Resources to help us get all those workers recruited and placed. So that has been a big help. So the portal that I talked about has been up and running. Now on the back end of that, we've been using OneDrive, and now every ballot application that comes in through email, mail, and fax, we scan those into OneDrive through the back end of the portal that we developed, and now all of those are being processed off of one dashboard. So we've got the SOS portal, where people apply, and then we've got our portal where somebody can upload a paper application that they have, and then we're also scanning everything we receive through the mail on the back end. So now we only have two dashboards upon which we're processing, and it's really streamlined our entire absentee by mail processing procedures. And we've been able to get a lot of help from that with U.S. Digital Response, as I've said before, and also the elections group staff that's been spearheading that for us within the department. As I've said before, we've got 255 polling locations, 30 early voting locations. We've got the mobile voting precincts. We've got 18 days scheduled for each of those buses. The 19th day will be for overflow at the 2 busiest sites, other than the 3 larger sites, State Farm, GICC, and the Benson Senior Center. And we will begin delivering equipment for early voting next week. Sharon has been doing training at State Farm for everybody. And that's pretty much it at this point for the general election update, unless somebody else has more questions.
Colleagues?
Oh,
Mr. Wynn, go ahead, Mr.
I know
Barrett.
ballots by mail have been hitting mailboxes. I've been getting reports that people have begun to receive those. On the Secretary of State's website now, they have ballot tracks so that you can track your ballot. I registered this morning, found that my absentee by mail ballot was mailed on the 24th. So I expect to receive it soon.
Okay. Mr. Wingate.
When will you finalize, Rick, the mobile schedule? Any idea of that yet?
Nadine, do you think that's going to be ready tomorrow?
I'm truly hoping so. I'm just waiting on a few churches. I'm waiting on a few churches to finalize, to give me a final answer. They're checking with their councils, but I'm hoping it'll be finalized tomorrow.
Okay, because I was looking at,
and if they don't,
13 of them were still pending.
No, we only have around 4 pending now.
Okay, all right, so that's picked up, okay, several since we got this notice yesterday. Okay, good.
All right, other questions or comments? Dr. Ruth.
Uh, Thank you for that update, Rick. So No Ink, they're working on the cachet box right now.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, they did some testing on it yesterday and today, although I don't know how the testing went today, but yesterday they were somewhat satisfied with the cash box test, although I think they need to do some more testing. And we still haven't mounted the Meraki devices in their permanent locations because two more access points just came in last week. So we have to get those hung in the warehouse. And once those are hung, we'll be able to do a final test on them. And they need to figure out where the sweet spot is of how many we hook up to that cash box, how many poll pads we can hook up to that poll pad or to the cash box at once.
Okay, because it's a little concerning because we're 4 weeks out. And so with No Ink, how far in advance or ahead can you upload that bulk file?
We can't start it until the day Saturday after early voting. That's when the file becomes available.
That's Saturday after early
voting. Yeah, it'll be like usually it's available around 5:30, 6 in the morning on that Saturday before Election Day.
So do you feel you have enough time these next few weeks to work very closely with No Ink to make sure that the poll pads are?
I'm in touch with the CEO almost every day, and they've been giving me updates on their progress. And I think over the last 2 weeks, just the amount of progress we've made just over the last 2 weeks is giving me more confidence as the days go. So I think once we have the brackets, the Meraki devices installed on the brackets in the warehouse so that they're up above, I think we'll be able to get a final test in, and then that will. It's just been clear to me that No Ink is they're all in on this with us to support us and to make sure this works, and they're planning out the steps of how we're going to make this happen.
Okay, great. And I will say, I do want to mention that they have definitely been supportive, and seemed like you've built a really good relationship with them these past few weeks, to have them providing this support for us. And what will be their support during November, like during early voting and when we get to November 3rd?
I'm going to talk to him about that. I know that the poll pads are used differently during early voting than they are on Election Day. They just are only used for card activation during early voting. So the focus for them is Election Day rather than during early voting. We haven't had any issues with that really during early voting, except at the beginning of this last one. But what we've done is I told them that I wanted to buy Cradle points, one for each precinct. We have those ordered now. What those Cradle points do is give us the ability to reset any poll pad that has an issue in the precinct on Election Day. So we will have one Cradle point for each precinct on Election Day, which is up until now we've only had 3. So that gives us an extra backup, and it will also allow us to be able to see what the status is of all of our poll pads in the field on Election Day, which is something we don't have the ability to do right now.
All right, Dr. Ruth, do those conclude your questions?
Well, I have one more, and that's about the emergency paper ballots or provisional ballots, and just how are we preparing as far as materials, having enough materials available at the precincts?
We have, the law says that we are supposed to have 10%. We're looking at ordering up to 20% for each of the precincts. We'll now that we're past once we get back into the office tomorrow, we'll make that order final and move forward from there.
And the law says at least 10%?
Yeah, it says you must have 10% of the active registered voter count.
Have 10%.
Available in each precinct.
But you can have more.
We can have more, and we do need more than 10%.
Yes, yeah. And so can you just keep us up to date as far as how much more you see when you place that order? Thank you.
Yes.
All right, if those conclude your questions, any other board members having questions about preparation for the general election? And I am not hearing or seeing any, and that makes me think we can conclude item number 4 on our agenda, which brings us to item number 5, which is to set a date for certifying the election that we're here for tonight. Mr. Barron?
We can, if you want to do it at the, I think, Ralph, Ralph, Dwight, Nadine, do you think that we can certify the election, this election on the, I guess the monthly board meeting is going to be on October
8th.
The
8th.
The 8th? Yeah.
Yes.
So we can do it that same day.
Okay.
Which is the Thursday.
I assume that this is something that the chair can set. I assume that we all have the 8th squared away for a regular meeting. So let's operate on that premise that we're going to certify this election on the 8th. And if there are any problems, then we can deal with them. And then I'll call the special meeting as we get towards October the 8th. Okay? Okay. Now, if that concludes item number 5, we do have some litigation to discuss. And Ms. Bodison, this is where I want to make sure that I am doing it right, at least. The members of the board are going to get out of this Zoom session, and we are going to pick up an invitation that was issued to us and enter that Zoom session, which is our executive session. And then at the end of it, we are going to go back to this Zoom invitation and re-invite ourselves. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Hi, finally. Okay. Let me ask if I have a motion for this board to go into executive session to discuss matters of litigation.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we go into executive session to discuss matters of litigation. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Ms. Cooney, aye. Mr. Wingate?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Dr. Ruth?
Aye.
Ms. Newridan?
Aye.
All right. So I will see you all in a minute. To anyone observing us, you are welcome to wait for us. I very much doubt that we will have any business after this executive session, but you are most welcome to wait. Thank you all. You are so right. I will entertain a motion to leave executive session and resume our regular meeting. Do I have that motion?
So moved. Second.
It's been properly moved and abundantly seconded that we leave our executive session and resume our regular meeting. All those in favor? Cooney, aye. Newridan?
Aye.
Wingate?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Ruth?
She's having trouble getting back on, she said.
Okay, well, we have our quorum for that. We have our votes.
Okay.
And having done that, is there any further business that this board needs to discuss?
No, ma'am.
And hearing none of that.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
of a motion to adjourn, properly seconded. All in favor say aye and raise your hand. Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mary Carol. Thanks all.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.